If you don't have many friends, society has already decided something is wrong with you. And if you're listening to this, some part of you has wondered if that might be true. You're difficult, closed, broken in some way others aren't. But here's what society doesn't tell you. That judgment was built for a different kind of person. Someone who needs breadth over depth, who feels alive in groups, safe in approval, real when seen by many. If that's not you, then you were never supposed to fit that scale. Because people with few close friends are often not socially deficient. They're socially selective. And that selectivity, it's almost always the symptom of something rare, not something broken. Before we go into the 6 traits, I want to ask you something most people have never been asked directly. When did you first learn that staying alone was safer than letting people in? You might not have an answer yet, but by the end of this video, you will. So let's begin. Trait 1. Your standard is too high, and you'd rather be alone than lower it. There's a word that gets thrown at people with few friends: picky. As if being selective about the most intimate, vulnerable, psychologically significant relationships in your life is like choosing cereal. But the research tells a different story. Studies on adult friendship show that quality of connection matters far more to well-being than quantity. One genuinely close relationship, one person who knows you without editing, who shows up when it's hard, who doesn't require performance, does more for your nervous system than a dozen surface-level friendships. And people with few friends, they know this, not abstractly. They've tried the alternative. They've sat in rooms full of people and felt more alone than in silence. They've had friendships that looked right from the outside, the check-ins, the group chats, the birthday messages, and felt nothing like connection on the inside. And at some point, they made a decision. I'd rather have nothing than something that costs me energy and gives me nothing real. But that decision comes with a cost most people don't see until much later. This isn't antisocial behavior. This is integrity. It's the refusal to perform connection you don't feel. And while it can be deeply honest, it can also quietly isolate you in ways no one sees. Here's the shadow side. Sometimes the standard becomes a wall, not built to keep people out, but built so long ago to protect you that you've forgotten it's there. The question worth asking: is my standard protecting me or preventing something I actually want? And here's what most people miss. That high standard doesn't just show up in who you choose. It shows up in how you experience people. Trait 2. Social interactions drain you more than they restore you. Most people socialize to recharge. The noise, the laughter, the easy back and forth, it fills something. They leave feeling lighter. But for you, it works differently. You don't just participate in conversation, you absorb it. You carry the emotional subtext. You notice the tension nobody named. You track what was said, what wasn't said, what someone's face did when they said it, whether it matches what they said last week. This is called high sensory and emotional processing, a well-documented neurological trait studied by psychologist Elaine Aron. Around 15 to 20% of people process stimulation, emotional, sensory, social, at a significantly deeper level. And that depth, it's not a choice. It's how your nervous system is built. For these people, a 2-hour social event can feel like 6 hours of work. You leave exhausted and then wonder why everyone else seems fine. Not because they don't enjoy connection, but because they're doing far more invisible work per interaction than anyone realizes. And when you're doing that much work, you become efficient with your energy. You stop attending things that don't justify the cost. You stop maintaining surface relationships. You stop pretending you're not tired. And gradually, your social world shrinks, not because you failed at friendship, but because you stopped paying full price for something that gave you nothing back. But there's something even lonelier than being drained by people. It's editing yourself around them. Trait 3. You feel too much, so you learn to hide it. This is the one people rarely name, but it's one of the most common patterns. You've tried to share yourself honestly, not dramatically, just real. And the response came back wrong. Too quick, too fixed, too dismissive. Or the person went quiet in a way that told you they didn't know what to do with what you just offered. And you learned something. Your depth isn't always a gift. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it makes people feel inadequate. Sometimes it makes things heavy when they wanted light. So, you started protecting people from the full version of yourself. You learned to edit, to stay at the level the other person could hold, to keep the real layers for the silence after everyone leaves. This isn't shyness. This is learned concealment, and it's one of the loneliest patterns a human can live inside. Because you're not absent from the relationship. You're present, but contained. Fully there, but only showing the part that won't cause discomfort. And at some point, you stop showing up fully, not because you had nothing to say, but because you learned people only stay comfortable with you when you're not completely yourself. So you learn to be liked, but not known. And the connection that results? It's real, in a limited way, but it never satisfies the deeper hunger. Because the part that most needs to be known is the part that stays hidden. And this is the part nobody tells you. The people who can hold your depth, they exist. They're rare, but they're out there. The question isn't whether you're too much. The question is whether you've been looking in the right places. Now, if all this sounds isolating, you might assume people like this hate being alone. But actually, it's the opposite. Trait 4. You don't just tolerate solitude, you need it. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, with solitude, with sitting alone with their thoughts. They reach for the phone, the noise, the plan, the presence of another person. But you're different. Solitude isn't something you tolerate. It's something you need. Not just as recovery from the social world, but as an active, nourishing state where your most important thinking happens. You process better alone. You understand yourself better in silence. You create and arrive at clarity in a way that can't happen when others are present. You don't just sit alone. You feel alive there, in a way the outside world rarely gives you. Researchers call this a rich inner life, the ability to find your inner world inherently rewarding and self-sustaining. You don't need external validation to feel that your experience has meaning. You generate meaning internally. But here's the complication. A very rich inner world can become so self-sufficient that the motivation to seek connection diminishes. Why navigate the unpredictability of another person when the inside world is already full, interesting, and safe? The risk isn't that you become strange. The risk is that you become comfortable with an arrangement that was never meant to be permanent. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because even when you try to connect, something in you doesn't let you stay comfortable for long. Trait 5. You can sense inauthenticity instantly. You've been in conversations where everything seemed fine. The words were right, the tone pleasant, and yet something in you registered. This person isn't fully present. There's a version being presented and a different version being held back. And you couldn't just ignore that signal the way others do, even when you wanted to. This is a form of social awareness linked to high emotional intelligence. The ability to detect micro-expressions, tonal shifts, behavioral contradictions, most people filter out. For some, it's a refined skill. For others, it's automatic, unavoidable, and often unwelcome. The result? Casual friendship, the kind built on shared activities and surface-level liking, feels hollow in a way it simply doesn't to most people. And because most adult friendships are built exactly that way, you find yourself unable to participate at the level everyone else seems comfortable with. This doesn't mean you're superior. It means you're wired differently. And while that wiring protects you from false connection, it also makes the real kind rarer and harder to find. Now I want to come back to the question I planted at the beginning, because this final trait, it's different from the others. Trait 6. Closeness feels like risk because it once was. When did you first learn that having fewer connections was safer than having more? Because for most people with few close friends, not all, but most, the number isn't just a personality preference. It's also a learned response. Maybe in childhood, where the social environment was unpredictable or painful enough that withdrawal became protective. Maybe in adolescence, where vulnerability was met with betrayal often enough that the lesson became, the less you let people in, the less they can hurt you. Maybe in a specific relationship that ended in a way that rewired your understanding of what closeness actually costs. None of this makes you damaged, but it's worth naming, because this trait is different. The others are about how. You're built. This one is about what you learned. And what was learned can, with time and the right conditions, be unlearned, or at least questioned. Here's what research on adult attachment shows. People hurt in close relationships don't lose the need for connection. They lose the sense of safety that makes pursuing it feel worth the risk. So the calculus becomes, I want closeness. I also believe closeness will eventually cost me something I can't afford to lose. So I stay at a distance that keeps both things partially true. Not because you don't want connection, but because you remember what it cost last time. And some part of you decided, it's not happening again. That calculus protects you. And it also keeps you stuck. Knowing which function it's currently performing, protection or imprisonment, is one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Let me be very clear before we close. None of these 6 traits mean you don't need people. You do. Every human nervous system is built for connection, not optional, not nice to have, but biologically necessary for regulation, health, and meaning. Isolation, even chosen isolation, carries real costs over time. But here's what the research also shows. The depth and quality of connection matters more than the number. One person who knows you fully, who has seen you unedited, who stayed through your hardest things, who makes your nervous system go quiet, is not a consolation prize. It's the goal. It's what most people with many friends are searching for inside those friendships without finding it. You are not behind. You are not failing. You're someone who refused to settle for connection that costs everything and gives nothing real. And that refusal, painful as it's been, is not a flaw. It's a form of self-respect most people never develop. The next step isn't to lower your standard. The next step is to stay open enough that the rare people who can meet it have a chance to find you. So where this pattern starts to shift, the first thing to notice is this. Is it a standard or is it a wall? Ask yourself honestly, is the reason I don't have close friends because nobody's been worthy of my depth? Or is there a wall I built so long ago I no longer recognize it as a choice? Both can be true, but they require different responses. A high standard needs patience. A wall needs noticing. The second, let one person in further than feels comfortable. Not all the way, not immediately, but one more layer than your default. Say one honest sentence you would normally keep to yourself. Because the nervous system learns safety through experience, not reasoning. You can't think your way into feeling closeness is safe. You have to feel it once, imperfectly, and survive it. The third, and this is the hardest, stop waiting for the other person to go first. People who process deeply and sense inauthenticity tend to wait for others to demonstrate safety before revealing themselves. But the people who can meet your depth, they're doing the exact same thing. Two rare people never find each other because both are waiting. Someone has to go first. It doesn't have to be fully, but it has to be real. And if you're honest, it's not that you don't want people. It's that you don't want to feel alone while being around them again. If any part of this video described something you've felt but never heard named, subscribe to UNFELT. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for people who feel too much or feel nothing at all, who've always lived slightly outside the social world everyone else navigates easily, who process deeper, notice more, and carry things quietly that others don't even see. You're not broken. You're not behind. But you are looking for the language to understand yourself. And that's what we do here. Every video on this channel names the patterns most psychology content skips over. The ones that are too uncomfortable, too specific, too real. If that's what you need, you're in the right place. Now, comment below. Which of the 6 traits felt most like you? Just the number 1 through 6. And tell me, did it feel like a strength or a defense? I'm genuinely curious, because most people watching this are either trait 2 or 6. I want to see if that pattern holds. And if it does, it tells us something important about what actually isolates people. And here's the thing. If you're still here, there's a reason. Stumble into a video about why some people have few friends by accident. Some part of you was looking for this. For permission, maybe. Or clarity. Or just confirmation that you're not the only one. You're not. And if someone in your life doesn't have many friends, and you've never understood why, send them this video. Not as a diagnosis. not as a fix, but because it might say something they've been carrying alone for a very long time. I'll see you in the next video.